Trump is threatening a 50% tariff on all Canadian-made aircraft.
Canada is not doing well. They're doing very poorly. And you can't look at China as the answer.
Donald Trump promising to decertify Canadian planes because Transport Canada has not certified some American-made aircraft. Canada has wrongfully, illegally, and steadfastly refused to certify the Gulfstream 500, 600, 700, and 800 jets.
The president is threatening to expand the trade war to the aviation sector now.
For nearly 4 years, Canada's fighter jet decision appeared final. The country agreed to buy 88 fighter jets in a deal valued at $19 billion. Military planners prepared for operations stretching 30 to 40 years into the future. Budgets were approved, bases were upgraded, and training plans were already underway. The first 16 jets were confirmed, and the remaining 72 were expected to follow on schedule. Then the decision paused. Quietly, Ottawa froze the rest of the order. There was no emergency announcement, no late-night speech, and no public confrontation. Just a procedural move that stopped billions of dollars in future commitments. The timing made the pause impossible to ignore. Global military spending had crossed $2.2 trillion, and NATO tensions were increasing. Washington expected stability from close partners. Instead, Canada introduced uncertainty. A deal once seen as permanent was suddenly no longer guaranteed. Why the deal was considered untouchable? The fighter deal was viewed as untouchable because of its size and strategic role. At $19 billion, it ranked among the largest defense purchases in Canadian history. The plan covered 88 aircraft, multiple air bases, and thousands of military personnel. Defense officials projected service life through 2055 and beyond, making the decision a generational commitment. Beyond cost, the order was tied directly to alliance security. Canada's air defense operates under NORAD, which protects airspace for over 580 million people across North America. Shared aircraft systems meant shared missions, training, and planning. Interoperability was not optional. It was treated as essential. Once contracts reach this scale, reversals are rare. Governments avoid reopening defense deals because disruption is expensive and politically risky. That belief shaped expectations. Money, alliances, and long timelines made the deal feel permanent. The freeze broke that assumption. The assumptions behind U.S. control. Modern fighter programs depend on more than aircraft. They rely on software, approvals, and supply chains. In this case, more than 90% of core software systems required external authorization. Weapons integration, mission updates, and system upgrades flowed through U.S.-managed networks. This structure was never hidden. It was described as cooperation. Over time, it became routine. Parts crossed borders daily. Software updates followed preset cycles. Access came with conditions that were rarely questioned. Because of this setup, Washington expected consistency. Once a country joined the system, pausing or exiting became difficult. Influence did not need threats. It worked quietly through process. The freeze challenged that logic. It showed that even inside tightly linked systems, a country could pause. That single decision questioned long-standing assumptions about permanence and control. The freeze, what actually changed? Canada did not cancel the program. It froze it. That distinction matters. Cancellation ends discussion. A freeze stops momentum while preserving leverage. Roughly $15 to $16 billion of the deal is now paused. No replacement aircraft was announced. No deadline was set. Officials used careful language, calling it a review. In defense planning, reviews are powerful. Timelines affect training cycles, maintenance planning, and long-term budgets measured in decades. What stood out most was the lack of drama. Silence reduced confrontation while still changing direction. Suppliers paused production plans. Partners adjusted expectations. In procurement terms, freezes are strategic tools. They slow commitments without breaking contracts. Without threats or public conflict, Canada shifted the balance. The future changed without being declared. Why this shocked Washington? For Washington, predictability is critical. Defense planning relies on stability across 20 to 40-year cycles. When a $19 billion deal pauses, it disrupts expectations built over decades. Trump's reaction reflected surprise more than technical disagreement. Alignment had been assumed. Instead, Canada chose uncertainty. That was unexpected from a close partner. The difficulty lay in the method. No treaty was violated. No agreement was broken. Canada acted within rules that limited response options. There was no clear action to counter. Uncertainty creates cost. Production schedules shift. Confidence weakens. Influence becomes harder to measure. This moment was not about aircraft performance. It was about whether long-standing leverage systems still function when partners choose pause over automatic compliance. The deeper issue: control versus capability. Public discussion often focuses on performance. Speed, range, and stealth dominate headlines. But modern defense also depends on authority. Control determines how systems are used. Fighter jets rely on software updates every 12 to 18 months. Weapons access requires approval. Data sharing defines mission limits. Without permission, even advanced aircraft lose flexibility. By freezing the deal, Canada reframed the debate. The question became decision-making, not hardware quality. Capability can be purchased. Control must be negotiated. This shift matters globally. As defense platforms become more digital, authority becomes as important as technology itself. The pause sent a clear message. Long-term dependence is no longer accepted without review. That signal reaches far beyond one contract. Escalation risk, pressure without headlines. Pressure in defense relationships rarely appears as threats. It often moves through policy language, trade signals, and diplomatic warnings. These tools influence behavior quietly. Trade actions can affect industries worth billions. Defense cooperation can slow. Access to shared programs can be reconsidered. None of this requires public confrontation. This pressure works best when invisible. It relies on expectation rather than force, but it only works if partners respond as predicted. Canada's freeze tested that system. The response unfolded behind closed doors, not on public stages. The risk now is accumulation. Small pressures can stack over time. The key question is whether Canada considers that cost acceptable to preserve long-term decision space. Why this moment is bigger than one deal. More than 30 NATO members face similar choices. Many depend on major allies while seeking independence. Canada's move is being closely observed. The freeze was not dramatic, but it was visible. It showed that even deeply integrated partners can pause major defense commitments. That alone shifts calculations. Other countries may not copy the move, but they will study its outcome. If pause is possible without collapse, options expand. This moment is not really about aircraft. It is about how alliances adapt in a world of rising costs and shifting power. Canada became a case study, not by rejecting cooperation, but by slowing it. That signal carries weight beyond this deal. Still unresolved. No final decision has been announced. The deal remains frozen. The remaining 72 jets are still under review. Discussions continue quietly between governments and defense planners. By keeping the outcome open, Canada preserves leverage. All sides must plan for more than one future. That uncertainty shapes behavior. The story ends without resolution. Instead, it leaves a question. How much control should a country trade for security? And when does reassessment become necessary? For now, billions remain unspent. Deliveries remain paused. Influence is being tested calmly, not loudly. In today's defense landscape, uncertainty is no longer weakness. It has become a signal, and sometimes a strategy.